At the high school reunion, during a game of penitence confession, Vicky sat with a glowing LED badge hanging around her neck. The scrolling red text on the digital display read, "I regret marrying Julian." A video of the scene was sent to Julian Thorne's phone, accompanied by a caption, "Mr. Thorne, look at your wife repenting in front of everyone. Such piety." Julian didn't smash his phone. He simply typed a two-word reply, "Received." He intended to make those hecklers, along with the woman who was once his wife, personally experience the true meaning of regret. "Julian, are you really not going to pick up Vicky?" Connor Mills, his executive assistant, placed the car keys on the expansive mahogany desk, his voice low. Julian didn't lift his head. His fountain pen carved a sharp, fluid signature at the bottom of a document, the final stroke ending with such abrupt force that the ink nearly bled through the paper. "It's a reunion. Let her have her fun." His voice was as flat as a weather report. He closed the folder, pushed it aside, and picked up the next one. His phone screen lit up. It was a message from Vicky, a photo of a dimly lit private room filled with blurry figures. The caption read, "It's starting." A bit loud. His finger hovered over the screen for half a second. He didn't reply. He locked the screen. The metal casing felt cold against his palm. Meanwhile, in the largest VIP suite at the Apex Club, the noise was threatening to blow the roof off. For a 10-year reunion, alcohol and the thrill of reuniting were the best catalysts. Vicky sat in a corner on a velvet sofa, her face flushed slightly from the flashing lights and the wine, holding a half-empty glass of champagne. She wore a tailored black dress that accentuated her pale skin, making her stand out among the crowd of classmates who had either let themselves go or were trying too hard. "Vicky, the beauty queen, why are you hiding over here?" A man in a loud, floral shirt with a protruding gut pushed through the crowd, holding a drink. It was Warren Wally Price, the class clown back in the day. Rumor had it he ran a construction supply company now and was doing well. His voice was booming, filled with unquestionable enthusiasm. "Come on, come on. Even the birthday girl isn't hiding as far back as you. No one leaves until they've partied enough today." A few men and women nearby joined the jeering. "Exactly. Vicky, you were the class goddess back then, and now you're Mrs. Thorne. You're so reclusive, we rarely see you." Vicky waved her hand with a smile, trying to set her glass down. "I really can't anymore. I have things to do tomorrow." "Oh, give me a break." A woman with perfectly coiffed waves and exquisite makeup, Lana Reed, sashayed over. She used to be Vicky's roommate and was now the head nurse at a major city hospital. She wrapped an arm around Vicky's shoulders, bringing a wave of strong perfume with her. "Vicky, don't be a killjoy. We only get together once a decade. The Thorne Empire is huge. Will it collapse if you miss one thing tomorrow? Don't be a buzzkill." Her voice was shrill, easily cutting over the background music. "Lana's right." Wally chimed in immediately. His eyes darted around as he slammed his hand on the table and stood up. "Just drinking is boring. Let's play something intense. Truth or dare. Ancient history. Let's play something fresh." His gaze swept the room before nailing onto Vicky with a look of malicious excitement. "Penitence confession. Who dares?" The room went quiet for a split second before erupting into louder noise and whistles. "Wally, you dirty dog. That sounds intense. How do you play? Spit it out." Wally cleared his throat smugly. Like a magician, he pulled a palm-sized black electronic badge from his bag, its edges lined with tiny LED lights. "See this? High-tech. The loser has to hang this baby around their neck and turn it on. It randomly scrolls the one thing you regret most in your heart. It has to be the most piercing, shameful secret. Then you walk a lap around the room so everyone can pay their respects. How about it? Explosive enough?" He shook the little badge, the LEDs flashing a cold blue light with his movements. "Holy crap. Wally, where did you get that wicked thing? If that scrolls out something we shouldn't see, won't that be instant social suicide? Play. We have to play. Whoever chickens out is a loser." The cheers rose in waves, alcohol thoroughly burning away the defenses of reason. Lana clapped her hands and screamed excitedly, "Vicky, you Mrs. Thorne. Set an example for the girls. Let's see what little secrets a wealthy socialite keeps in her heart." Her words were like a needle, precisely pricking that subtle, fragile pride Vicky had about not being looked down upon. Countless eyes focused on her, filled with scrutiny, peer pressure, and the excitement of watching a train wreck. The smile on Vicky's face went a little stiff, her fingers unconsciously twisting the hem of her dress. She looked at the ominous blinking badge in Wally's hand, then at the faces around her, red with booze and curiosity. Refuse. That meant admitting defeat. It meant Vicky was still just an accessory under Julian's massive halo, someone who didn't even dare to let loose at a reunion. An inexplicable impulse, a mix of rebellion and a screw-it-all attitude, rushed to her head. She took a deep breath, picked up the glass of hard liquor someone had just refilled, and downed it in one go. The spicy liquid burned her throat and incinerated her last shred of hesitation. Fine. She slammed the empty glass onto the table with a crisp thud, a flush of near desperation rising on her cheeks. Let's play. Who's afraid of who? Yes, Vicky is a boss. Wally led the applause, grinning so hard his eyes disappeared. He immediately shoved the cold electronic badge into Vicky's hand. Come on, birthday girl goes first. A round of applause. Amidst deafening clapping and whistles, Vicky's fingers trembled slightly as she fumbled to find the switch on the side of the badge. She pressed it gently. Buzz, a slight vibration. The screen in the center of the badge instantly lit up. Blinding white light flashed a few times, and then a line of incredibly clear, scarlet letters with a cheap digital texture began to scroll slowly and stubbornly across the display. I regret marrying Julian. The thunderous noise in the room was choked off as if by an invisible hand. The air solidified. The smiles froze on everyone's faces. Their expressions switched instantly from excitement to extreme shock and disbelief, staring straight at the badge around Vicky's neck glowing with red light and scrolling that fatal text. Time seemed to stop for a few seconds. Holy shit! Someone, somewhere, whispered a curse, their voice trembling. That low murmur was like a pebble thrown into stagnant water, instantly shattering the eerie silence. Uffed! Someone couldn't hold it back and burst out laughing, then immediately clamped a hand over their mouth, shoulders shaking violently. Oh my God! Playing that hard. Julian, Mr. Thorne? She regrets it? For real. Is the badge broken? You can't joke about this, Vicky. The whispers exploded like boiling oil. Shock, suspicion, scadenfronde, pure spectator gli. Diverse gazes hit Vicky like searchlights. She was stunned too. The badge around her neck felt like a red-hot branding iron, burning so hot her soul screamed. The line of text on the screen was still scrolling, scarlet and piercing. Every word felt like a poison-dipped needle stabbing into her eyes. No. No. She reached up in a panic to claw at the clasp behind her neck, her fingers shaking violently, her voice choked with tears. This damn thing is broken. It's writing nonsense. Turn it off. Help me turn it off. Wally was dumbfounded too. The smugness on his face was replaced by astonishment. He subconsciously wanted to help, but his hand extended halfway and then shrank back, his eyes darting nervously. But Lana reacted instantly. A look of near-ecstatic brilliance erupted in her shrewd eyes. Julian Thorne. Mrs. Thorne publicly saying she regrets marrying him. This was nuclear-level gossip. She practically lunged forward, not to help Vicky untie the badge, but to whip out her latest smartphone, her fingers trembling with excitement. Oh, Vicky, don't panic. Lana's voice pitched high and sharp, drowning out the surrounding noise. She plastered a fake smile on her face, but her phone camera was like a snake's tongue, greedily aiming at Vicky and the badge scrolling the evidence around her neck. It's just a game. It's all about the thrill. If it's broken, that's fate too. It implies that deep down in your subconscious. Haha. She deliberately dragged out her tone, shoving the lens closer to clearly capture Vicky's pale face, her panicked eyes, and every scarlet, piercing word on that badge. Lana, what are you doing? Vicky was shocked and angry, reaching out to block the lens, her voice breaking into a sob. Stop filming. Turn it off. Turn it off. Film it. Lana, get it clear. Wally snapped out of it too. The initial fright passed, replaced by a twisted excitement and a sense of vengeful pleasure. Julian Thorne? That high and mighty man who seemed to always crush him? His wife was now wearing a sign, saying she regretted marrying him like a joke. He shouted at the top of his lungs, "Let Mr. Thorne see his wife's truth. 10 years of classmates. Better to share the joy than keep it to ourselves." Several others around them, high on booze or harboring jealousy over Vicky marrying into wealth, joined the jeering. Exactly. Film it. Post it in the group. Mr. Thorne has definitely never seen this side of his wife. Huh. Send it. Good things must be shared. Lana's fingers worked furiously on the screen, her face showing undisguised malice and the smugness of someone about to claim credit. She adjusted the angle specifically so that Vicky's dazed, soul-lost face and the electronic badge scrolling, "I regret marrying Julian," were incredibly clear in the shot. She recorded for about 10 seconds, stopped with satisfaction, and tapped send. Target contact, Julian Thorne. She felt it wasn't enough, so she quickly typed a line of text below it, every word dripping with provocation and schadenfreude. Mr. Thorne, look at your wife repenting in front of everyone. Such piety. The reunion atmosphere is intense. It's a pity you didn't come. The sent notification chimed. Lana and Wally exchanged a knowing, malicious look. Julian had just finished a transoceanic video conference. The screen went dark, reflecting his expressionless face. Outside the massive floor-to-ceiling windows, the city's neon lights spilled in, casting chiaroscuro shadows on the sharp contours of his profile, like a cold, hard sculpture. The only sound in the office was the low hum of the central air conditioning. Ding! His phone vibrated on the mahogany desktop. The screen lit up. It was a WeChat message from Lana. A video, followed by a line of text. He picked up the phone, his fingertips cold. Unlocked it. Tapped it open. The video began to play. The roaring background noise instantly rushed into the silent office. In the shaky, blurry lens, there were disorienting lights and distorted faces. Then, the image snapped into focus. Vicky. Her face was deathly pale, her eyes panicked like a startled deer. Around her neck hung a glowing electronic badge. On the badge, scarlet digital font scrolled slowly, stubbornly, over and over. "I regret marrying Julian. I regret marrying Julian. I regret marrying Julian." Every word was like a red-hot steel needle, stabbing ruthlessly into the bottom of Julian's eyes. The video was short, only 10 seconds, freezing finally on the moment Vicky reached out in vain to block the camera, her face written with breakdown. Below it was Lana's text. "Mr. Thorne, look at your wife repenting in front of everyone. Such piety. The reunion atmosphere is intense. It's a pity you didn't come." The office was dead silent. Even the sound of the air conditioning seemed to vanish. The air congealed into ice. Julian gripped the phone, his knuckles turning distinctively white from the force, the veins under his skin bulging as if ready to burst. He stared at that line of text. His eyes were bottomless, containing no anger, no sorrow, only an extreme, icy wasteland capable of freezing a soul to pieces. Deep within that wasteland, something seemed to be silently collapsing, shattering, turning into dust. Time passed second by second. He was like a lifeless stone statue. Suddenly, he moved. He didn't smash the phone. He didn't flip the table. He reached out his other hand and picked up the heavy brass paperweight on the desk. The cold, hard touch of the brass transmitted through his palm. Then, gripping the paperweight, he smashed it ruthlessly, without hesitation, onto the back of the hand holding the phone. Thud! A muffled sound, shockingly loud in the dead silent room. Intense pain instantly exploded from the back of his hand, shooting up his arm to his brain. It felt like the bones were shattering. He let out a muffled grunt, cold sweat instantly beading on his forehead, his body spasming slightly from the agony. But those eyes remained fixed on the phone screen. The ice in his gaze didn't crack. It became harder, deeper. Pain. Sharp, real pain. This pain was like a sharp chisel, breaking open the shell of ice that wrapped around a monstrous wave. Not anger, not jealousy, but something deeper, darker, roaring beneath the ice. It was dignity utterly trampled, the shame of 10 years of devotion crushed in public, the devastation of a carefully constructed world collapsing in an instant. This pain made him completely lucid and completely cold. He slowly, incredibly slowly, released the paperweight. The brass weight hit the thick carpet with a heavy clunk. The back of the hand he had smashed began to swell visibly, terrifying blue-purple bruising accumulating rapidly under the skin, trembling slightly. He seemed not to feel this agony. With his uninjured hand, he moved his thumb across the phone screen. Open the text box. Fingertip hovered. A few seconds later, he typed one word. Received. Send. No punctuación. No emotion. Just one cold word, like a judge bringing down the gavel, announcing a certain end. He put down the phone. The screen went dark. The office fell back into dimness, only the faint city light outside outlining his back, straight as a javelin. He walked to the massive floor-to-ceiling window, looking down at the brilliantly lit city with its weaving traffic. Millions of lights, but not a single one belonged to the coldness he felt in this moment. He lifted that agonizing, swollen, bruised hand and used his fingertip to slowly, forcefully wipe across the cold glass window. It left a blurry trail of body heat on the glass, which quickly dissipated into the cold air. Vicky. He whispered the name, his voice hoarse like sandpaper rubbing together, every syllable laced with ice shards. Warren Price. Lana Reed. He recited them slowly, clearly, like reading a sentencing list. Good. The corner of his mouth pulled up continuously slightly. It wasn't a smile. It was more like the glint of a fang exposed when a predator locks onto its prey. In that frozen wasteland at the bottom of his eyes, a spark finally ignited. Not fire, but a destructive cold flame at absolute zero, capable of freezing a soul. He turned, no longer looking at the illusory prosperity outside the window. He walked to the desk, picked up the landline, and pressed the speed dial for the internal line. His voice had returned to its usual hardness, betraying no ripple of emotion, only a metallic texture. Connor, get in here, now. The heavy solid wood door was pushed open silently. Connor Mills walked in quickly, his face wearing his habitual caution. Mr. Thorne. Before he finished speaking, his gaze keenly caught the obviously abnormal hand hanging at Julian's side, swollen, bruised, terrifying in shape. Connor's pupils contracted sharply. Professionalism made him instantly suppress his shock, but his voice leaked a trace of tension. Your hand. It's nothing. Julian cut him off, his voice like a blade quenched in ice, crisp and sharp. He walked around the wide desk, stopped in front of Connor, and casually shoved the injured hand into his suit pocket, as if the gruesome injury didn't exist. His gaze was sharp as a falcon's, stabbing straight into Connor, carrying an unquestionable oppression. Two things. Julian spoke, every word hitting the floor like a bead of ice. First, immediately freeze all personal bank accounts, credit cards, and securities accounts under Vicky's name, including the supplementary card her mother uses. Not a penny moves. Notify all partner banks and institutions to execute immediately. No explanations. I bear the consequences. Connor was shaken to his core. Freeze all of the madam's accounts? This was tantamount to a total economic blockade. He instantly connected it to the video Mr. Thorne had just received. Could it be? He dared not think too deeply and immediately bowed his head. Yes, Mr. Thorne. I'll handle it right away. Second, Julian's voice grew a few degrees colder, carrying the texture of grinding metal. Investigate two people. Warren Price, owner of Price Construction Materials. Lana Reed, head nurse of cardiology at Metro General Hospital. I want everything on them. Company operations, taxes, bank records, personal privacy, medical records, social networks. Everything you can dig up. Any dirt that can ruin their reputations and bankrupt them. Legal dirt. He deliberately emphasized the word legal, his eyes cold. I'll give you 24 hours. The data must be comprehensive, accurate, and lethal. Connor felt his back instantly soaked in cold sweat. He knew this boss too well. The destructive power contained under this calm was 100 times more terrifying than a raging fire. He had no doubt Warren Price and Lana Reed were finished. Understood, Mr. Thorne. Connor's voice was decisive. 24 hours. I guarantee the files will be on your desk. Julian nodded slightly, said no more, and turned back toward the floor-to-ceiling window, leaving Connor with only a cold and oppressive back view. Connor dared not delay for a moment. He turned immediately and almost ran out of the office. The moment the door closed, the hand Julian had shoved in his pocket finally convulsed uncontrollably from the intense pain. He slowly withdrew the hand, looking at the hideous bruising and swelling. His eyes showed no fluctuation, as if it were merely someone else's limb. He walked behind the desk and sat down. The immense pain actually made his brain exceptionally clear, like a high-speed, cold, precision microchip. He opened his computer and pulled up an encrypted folder. Inside were anomaly records regarding Vicky that he had his private team quietly collect over the past few years. Clues he had once chosen to ignore or unwillingly investigate, including several hidden, small, but continuous capital flows under her name, pointing to a private account he had never heard of. He stared at the data stream on the screen, his eyes sharp as knives. His fingers tapped on the keyboard, pulling up another interface. It was the capital network of the Core Family Trust and offshore companies he controlled. He needed time. He needed the dirt Connor dug up as leverage. More importantly, he needed a nuclear weapon that could nail Vicky to the wall and leave her defenseless in divorce court. He picked up his phone and dialed a number he rarely used. It rang 3 times. The other end connected, and a steady male voice answered. Mr. Thorne, it's me. Julian's voice held no warmth. Harrison, I have a matter that needs your personal attention. Immediately. Top-level confidentiality. Go ahead, Harrison Lloyd, the attorney on the other end, instantly shifted into professional mode. First, prepare a divorce agreement. Pursuant to the relevant family law statutes, the marriage is irretrievably broken with no possibility of reconciliation. The wife is at major fault. Julian's speech was steady, as if stating facts unrelated to himself. Second, I need 2 paternity test reports. One between me and Leo. The other. He paused, the ice in his eyes thickening. Between Vicky and Leo. I will have the samples sent to your designated lab. Expedited. The most authoritative institution. Full video documentation of the chain of custody. There was a 2-second silence on the other end. Clearly, even Harrison, who had seen it all, was shaken by this sudden, utterly cold command. Paternity test? And a maternity test? The implication behind this. But he immediately recovered his professionalism. Understood, Mr. Thorne. I will start on the agreement framework and testing requirements immediately. Once samples arrive, results within 24 hours. Third, Julian continued, his voice devoid of any undulation. Audit all accounts under Vicky's name and her associations, especially in the last 3 years. Any abnormal, large, or continuous outflows of funds. Trace the final destination. I need a complete, legally binding chain of evidence for asset transfer. Focus on investigating a man named Zachary Miller. I'll send his info shortly. Asset transfer, Zachary Miller. Harrison's voice grew grave. Mr. Thorne, if this involves malicious transfer of marital assets, under the law, we can claim for the other party to receive a reduced share or no share of the property and claim damages. I will organize a team immediately for forensic tracing and evidence preservation. Good. Julian spat out the word and hung up. He put down the phone and leaned back into the wide leather chair. The office was dead silent, save for his slightly heavy breathing and the throbbing, drilling pain in the back of his hand that he forcibly ignored. The neon lights outside still flickered, casting his profile in half-light, half-shadow. He closed his eyes. The image of the electronic badge, scrolling scarlet text in the video, and Lana's provocative caption floated clearly in his mind. In the frozen depths of his eyes, the destructive cold flame burned silently, getting brighter. 24 hours, like a taut bowstring. When a knock came on Julian's office door again, he was using his uninjured hand to slowly flip through an expedited file that had just been delivered, a preliminary investigation report on Zachary Miller. The man in the photo was in his 30s, average-looking, but with a hint of petty shrewdness in his eyes. The report showed he was Vicky's high school classmate, currently running a mid-sized advertising agency. His financial status was very interesting. Enter. Julie didn't look up. Connor walked in quickly. His face showed the fatigue of pulling an all-nighter, but his eyes were sharp. He held a thick manila envelope in his hands, as if carrying a bomb ready to detonate. Mr. Thorne, everything is here. He placed the envelope gently on Julian's wide desk. It made a soft thud. Julian closed the report on Zachary Miller, his gaze landing on the bulging envelope. Highlights. Yes. Connor took a deep breath, his speed fast and clear. Warren Price Construction Materials, shiny on the outside, rotten on the inside. Over the past 3 years, he has systematically evaded taxes through issuing fake VAT invoices, forging procurement contracts, and setting up shell companies to move money. We obtained copies of his real internal ledgers, secret recordings of his calls with several shell company heads, and email records of him instructing finance to cook the books. The evidence chain is complete. The amount is massive, enough to put him away for over 10 years. The company will inevitably face bankruptcy, liquidation. Julian remained expressionless, tapping his fingertip lightly on the desk to signal him to continue. Lana Reed, head nurse of cardiology at Metro General. Utilizing her position, she has long accepted commercial bribes from pharmaceutical companies and medical device suppliers. The method was concealed, mostly through specifying patients use specific brands of high-value consumables, like heart stents and catheters, and then taking kickbacks from suppliers through a distant relative's account. We have records of her banking anomalies from the last 2 years, recorded testimony from some sales reps, and extremely suggestive text messages between her and suppliers. The evidence is solid, enough for her to lose her license, ruin her reputation, and face criminal charges. The corner of Julian's mouth twitched upward almost imperceptibly, an arc cold without a trace of warmth. He picked up the heavy envelope, weighing it. The friction of paper and likely USB drives inside made a dull sound. Significant weight. Is it clean? He asked, his gaze torch-like. Absolutely clean, Connor said decisively. All sources have been through multiple layers of anonymization. Fund tracking used multi-layer encrypted proxies. All original evidence acquisition pathways can withstand the strictest legal scrutiny. We merely discovered and organized them. The whistleblowing materials will be delivered through completely anonymous, untraceable channels. Good. Julian put down the envelope and turned his gaze to the computer screen. It displayed a preview of an encrypted email just sent by Harrison Lloyd. The subject line was, "Paternity test report expedited. Results ready. Account freeze status? Already fully executed." Connor answered immediately. All personal accounts under Miss Vance's name, including the supplementary card her mother uses, are frozen. 3 of her commonly used credit cards were declined when attempted for small payments last night. Currently, the cash she can access personally should be very limited. He paused, then added, "Our people reported that after leaving the club last night, she didn't return to the villa. She went to a hotel downtown." There was no surprise on Julian's face, as if he had expected it. He clicked open Harrison's email and scrolled directly to the critical conclusion section. Sample A, Julian Thorne, and Sample C, Leo Thorne, consistent with biological father-son relationship. Sample B, Vicky Vance, and Sample C, Leo Thorne, consistent with biological mother-son relationship. 2 reports, clear conclusions, black and white, stamped with the red seal of an authoritative institution. Julian's gaze lingered on those lines for a full 10 seconds. No anger, no sorrow, only the coldness of dust settling. He closed the email and looked at Connor. Harrison is tracking the Zachary Miller side. Coordinate with him. Nailed down the evidence chain of the asset transfer, especially the parts where Vicky continuously transferred money to Zachary Miller's personal account over several years, and Zachary using that money to buy real estate and cars. Solidify it. Understood. Connor nodded. Now, Julian picked up the heavy envelope containing the crimes of Warren Price and Lana Reed and handed it to Connor. His voice was calm and waveless, yet carried the tone of a final judgment. Deliver what needs to be delivered. Yes, sir. Connor took the envelope with both hands, as if receiving an imperial decree that could not be disobeyed, turned, and strode out. The office door clicked shut gently. Julian sat alone in a massive space. He slowly lifted his still swollen, agonizing hand, looking at the ferocious bruising. Then he picked up the cold brass paperweight from the desk and, once again, ruthlessly, precisely smashed it onto the back of his other, uninjured hand. Thud! Another sound that would set one's teeth on edge. New agony exploded, overlaying the old injury, rushing to his head instantly, causing his vision to go black for a moment, the veins on his forehead bulging. He clenched his jaw tight, making not a single sound. Sweat slid down his temples. This self-destructive pain was like a potent, sobering agent, utterly crushing the last faint, lingering bond in his heart named Leo's mother. He needed this pain to remember this bone-deep betrayal, to water the poisonous flower named revenge that had already broken through the soil in his heart. He released the paperweight, letting it roll onto the carpet again. Drilling pain radiated from both hands, but he seemed not to feel it. He simply used those bottomless, ice-congealed eyes to gaze quietly out the window. The storm button had already been pressed. Warren, Wally Price, was dragged out of his mistress's tender embrace. The shrill ringing of his phone sounded like a death warrant. He had been dead drunk last night and overworked, sleeping like a log, and was full of rage when woken up. "Damn it, who is it? You looking to die?" He cursed as he grabbed the phone, eyes not even fully open. Caller ID showed the company CFO, Old Lou. "Mr. Price, something huge happened." Old Lou's voice carried a sob, smashing over him, shrill and off-key. "The IRS and the FBI, they surrounded the company first thing in the morning. All computers, ledgers, safes, everything is sealed. They took several people away. They have our real books. Real ones. Fake ones. They have it all. Mr. Price, it's over. It's all over." Wally's drunkenness and rage were instantly doused by this bucket of ice water, a chill shooting from the soles of his feet straight to his skull. He bolted upright in bed, the fat all over his body trembling. What? What the hell are you saying? Real books? How could they possibly? It's true, Mr. Price. Absolute truth. Old Lou's voice was now wailing in despair. The evidence they showed is too complete. Even that fake procurement contract for $3 million I did for you last year, and the recording of you discussing kickbacks with Old Wu in the sauna. They have it all. Mr. Price, think of something fast. The federal agents said you need to come to the Bureau immediately to cooperate with the investigation. They're going to arrest you. Boom! Wally felt like a bomb had gone off in his head, instantly blanking out. Cold sweat, like a dam breaking, soaked his expensive silk pajamas in an instant. The sauna? The recordings? The internal books? These things he thought were done seamlessly, buried deep underground. How could they all be exposed in broad daylight? His mistress was woken up too, grumbling discontentedly as she shifted. But Wally reacted like he'd been bitten by a viper. He shoved her away violently, jumped out of bed barefoot. Immense terror seized him, making him shake like a sieve. Over. Totally over. Tax evasion in massive amounts, plus those forged invoices. 10 years. 15 years? He didn't dare think. The company was definitely gone. House, cars, savings. Everything would be seized. Who was it? Who the hell was it? His brain was in chaos. The image of Vicky wearing that sign at the reunion last night, and Lana filming the video, flashed by, immediately denied by him frantically. Impossible. They didn't have the capability. Could it be? A cold name suddenly surfaced in his terror-addled mind. Julian Thorne. You. Julian, he murmured absently, his face pale as paper. That video. That provocative message. Could it be? A massive, overwhelming regret and terror instantly swallowed him. His legs gave way, and he collapsed like a pile of mud onto the cold floor. The phone slipped from his weak hand, still broadcasting old, loose, desperate cries. Mr. Price. Mr. Price, say something. Mr. Price. At the same time, Metro General Hospital. At the nurses' station in cardiology, the atmosphere was oppressive enough to suffocate. Hospital administrators in white coats, people from internal affairs, and two strangers in plain clothes but with sharp eyes surrounded Lana Reed. Her makeup, meticulously applied that morning, was now a smeared mess of cold sweat and tears. Her face was ashen, the arrogance and smugness from filming the video at the reunion last night completely gone. Ms. Reed, based on solid evidence we possess, you are suspected of utilizing your position as head nurse to accept commercial bribes from multiple pharmaceutical companies and medical device suppliers over a long period. The amounts are massive, the circumstances serious. You have severely violated the hospital's code of conduct and federal statutes. You are suspected of criminal activity. The hospital board has decided: 1. Immediate suspension pending investigation. 2. Termination of employment. Relevant leads on illegal activities have been handed over to the authorities for prosecution. No, I didn't. Sir, I'm being framed. They are framing me. Lana shrieked like a cat whose tail had been stepped on, trying to grab the administrator's arm, but was coldly blocked by someone nearby. Frame, the person from Internal Affairs scoffed coldly, slapping a stack of printed materials in front of her. These are your bank statements from the last 2 years. This account named Liam Strong. That's your cousin, right? Every month, fixed transfers from different PharmaLinked accounts. The times and amounts match perfectly with the records of you authorizing specific high-value consumables. And these, he threw down a few screenshots of WeChat messages. Lana, is the handling fee for the stents the same as usual? Don't worry, I'll recommend it to the patients. Usage is guaranteed to go up. Lana, the evidence is ironclad. You still want to deny it? Lana looked at those black and white papers and the chat screenshots she knew all too well. All strength was instantly drained from her body, her vision going black. Over. It was all over. The network she had painstakingly built over so many years, the channel she thought were seamless when taking money. How could it be dug up so cleanly, so thoroughly? Who wanted her dead? Wally? Impossible. He was in deep trouble himself. Could it be? Vicky's pale face from last night, that blinding electronic badge, and the malicious message she sent out herself floated up clearly like a nightmare. Julian Thorne. The name exploded in her mind like a thunderclap. That video, that message. She had only cared about venting her jealousy and the thrill of seeing Julian humiliated. She had never considered the consequences. She thought Julian would at most close the door and fight with Vicky, maybe divorce. She never imagined this fire would burn directly onto her in such a swift, precise, and destructive manner, burning her until no skin was left intact. Job lost, reputation destroyed, facing prison time. Immense fear and regret drowned her instantly. Her legs gave out. She couldn't support herself anymore, and she collapsed on the floor, covering her face and letting out a desperate, heart-wrenching wail. I was wrong. I know I was wrong. Spare me. Please. The crying echoed in the quiet nurse's station. Former colleagues watched from a distance, their expressions complex, some pity, but mostly disdain and distancing. On the bulletin board, a freshly printed notice titled Decision on the Termination of Lana Reed, stamped with the hospital's red seal, was being expressionlessly pasted up by a staff member. Every word was like a whip, lashing at her thoroughly collapsed world. When Vicky woke up in the hotel suite, her head was splitting. The dizziness of a hangover intertwined with the nightmare experience of the previous night, making her stomach churn violently. She struggled to sit up. The first thing she did was grab her phone. Screen unlocked. No missed calls from Julian. No messages. Dead silence. This silence made her panic more than any questioning or rage. Her fingers trembling, she opened her mobile banking app. Your account has been frozen. Please contact the issuer. The bright red prompt was like a bucket of ice water poured over her head. She didn't give up. She clicked on several other banking apps and payment software. Account status abnormal. Service suspended. Transaction failed. Please contact customer support. Card frozen. All interfaces flashed the same cold, rejecting prompts. All financial channels under her name were completely locked down. Even her mother's supplementary card, usually used for groceries and linked to her main account, showed as frozen. Panic seized her instantly. She immediately dialed Julian. Hello, the subscriber you have dialed is currently not available. A cold electronic female voice. Not turned off, but unreachable. That meant she was blocked. Julian, pick up the phone. She screamed at the unanswered phone, her voice laced with sobbing fear. What right do you have to freeze my cards? Listen to me explain. Last night was an accident. It was a game. That damn badge was broken. The only response was the busy signal. She spun around the room like a headless fly, the immense fear and feeling of isolation almost suffocating her. She needed money. Hotel bill, food, taxi. She didn't even have money to buy a bottle of water right now. She thought of Wally, thought of Lana. Last night, they were the ones jeering, taking photos. She tremblingly dialed Wally's number. Powered off. Called Lana's number. It rang for a long time before finally connecting. But it wasn't Lana's voice. It was a man's cold, stern tone. Hello, who is this? Lana Reed is suspected of serious violations and is undergoing formal investigation. She cannot communicate with the outside world during this period. Vicky's hand shook, almost dropping the phone. Lana, under investigation? Violations? Her brain was in chaos. Lana's excited and vicious face, while filming last night, floated clearly in her mind. Unwilling to give up, she dug out the numbers of a few classmates she had decent relationships with. Hello, Vicky? Oh, the signal is bad here. Hello? Hello? Can't hear you. The call was hung up. Vicky? What's up? Oh, Wally? Lana? I don't know. Haven't heard anything since last night. I have something to do. Gotta go. Sorry. The number you dialed is busy. A series of calls, either brushed off or hung up directly. The once lively classmate group chat was now dead silent. No one spoke, and certainly no one mentioned last night. Vicky felt like she had been abandoned by the entire world, dropped onto a bone-chillingly cold island. She finally realized that Julian's revenge had begun, and it was so swift, so cold, leaving no room for maneuver. He not only cut off her economic lifeline, but also instantly isolated her from everyone. Just then, the hotel room doorbell rang. Vicky jumped like a startled rabbit, her heart pounding wildly. Was it Julian? Did he finally come? She stumbled to the door, her voice trembling. Oh, who is it? Ms. Vicky Vance. A strange, steady male voice came from outside. I am Mr. Thorne's attorney, Harrison Lloyd. Please open the door. There are important legal documents you need to sign for. Attorney? Not Julian. Vicky's heart sank to the bottom, a massive premonition of doom shrouding her. She tremblingly opened the door. Outside stood a middle-aged man in a crisp suit and gold-rimmed glasses, looking sharp and efficient, holding a thick manila envelope. Behind him stood a young man in a uniform, looking like a notary or process server. Ms. Vance, hello. Harrison nodded slightly, his expression serious. Skipping all pleasantries, he handed the envelope directly to her. This is the divorce agreement, Mr. Thorne has commissioned me to formally serve to you, along with several related legal documents. Please sign for receipt. Vicky looked at the envelope like it was a viper, daring not to take it. No. I won't sign. I want to see Julian. I want to talk to him. Mr. Thorne currently refuses to engage in any direct communication with you. All matters are fully delegated to me. According to relevant statutes, the divorce agreement has been formally served. Additionally, he gestured to the staff member behind him, who immediately stepped forward holding a sealed file. These are copies of two paternity test reports issued by a legally qualified forensic institution. Harrison's voice was clear and cold, every word like an ice pick stabbing into Vicky's ears. One proves a biological father-son relationship between Mr. Thorne and Leo Thorne. The other proves that you, Ms. Vance, have a biological mother-son relationship with Leo. He specifically emphasized the word biological. Vicky's face instantly turned as white as paper, her body swaying, almost unstable. Paternity test? He actually went and did that. Although the result proved Leo was their child, the act itself was the most thorough denial and humiliation of her character and dignity. How could it? Her lips trembled, tears bursting forth. Harrison seemed not to see her breakdown, continuing in that emotionless voice. Simultaneously, based on our investigation and evidence collection, there is sufficient proof that during the marriage, you engaged in the malicious transfer of joint marital assets. He opened the envelope and pulled out several documents. Starting 3 years ago, you continuously transferred large sums of funds through multiple personal accounts to a personal account named Zachary Miller, totaling over $1 million. Zachary Miller used these funds to purchase a property in the Emerald Lake District and a luxury sedan. Relevant bank records, transfer receipts, property and vehicle registration information, and parts of Zachary Miller's testimony have all been secured, forming a complete chain of evidence. Harrison displayed the documents one by one in front of Vicky. Black and white, ironclad evidence. Those transfers she thought she did secretly. Those funds she moved to help an old classmate or satisfy a bit of her own private ego were now all exposed in broad daylight, becoming undeniable proof of her malicious asset transfer. Under the family code, Harrison's voice suddenly grew heavier, carrying legal authority and coldness. If one spouse hides, transfers, sells, destroys, squanders joint property, or forges joint debt to embezzle the other's property, upon divorce or division of joint property, that party may receive a reduced share or no share. Furthermore, given that your misconduct has caused severe emotional distress to Mr. Thorne, we will claim damages for emotional suffering in the litigation. Additionally, regarding the custody and child support of Leo Thorne. No. Vicky let out a shrill scream, interrupting Harrison. She lunged like a madwoman, trying to snatch the documents. That's my money. My own money. I didn't transfer it. Zach is my classmate. He needed funds for a turnover. I lent it to him. He'll pay it back. You can't do this. Julian can't do this to me. Harrison retreated agilely a step, dodging her, and the process server behind him immediately stepped up to separate them. He looked calmly at the frantic Vicky, his eyes holding not a shred of pity. Ms. Vance, please mind your behavior. The funds lent to Zachary Miller originated from joint assets during your marriage to Mr. Thorne, without any valid loan agreement. And given the continuous large-scale lending behavior combined with the fact the funds were converted into the other party's personal assets, legally, this is sufficient to establish malicious transfer. As for Mr. Miller's so-called promise to repay, lacking supporting evidence, it cannot stand against the existing facts. He put the documents back into the envelope, along with the divorce agreement, and handed it to Vicky again. His tone was a final ultimatum. This is the draft divorce agreement. Based on the aforementioned facts, Mr. Thorne claims, first, you have no right to divide any assets under his name or accumulated during the marriage. Second, you must pay a one-time emotional distress settlement of $300,000 to Mr. Thorne. Third, custody of Leo Thorne goes to Mr. Thorne, and you must pay monthly child support until he is of age. Please read it carefully. If we cannot reach an agreement, we will file a lawsuit in court. At that time, the aforementioned evidence will be presented as core exhibits. You will bear the consequences. Harrison placed the envelope on the console table by the door. He didn't look at the ashen, teetering Vicky again. He signaled the staff member. Service complete. Let's go. The door was gently pulled shut. In the luxurious hotel suite, only Vicky remained. She felt like all her bones had been removed, sliding slowly down the cold wall to sit on the expensive carpet. Before her eyes was that envelope symbolizing total destruction. Frozen accounts, isolation from friends, the humiliation of paternity tests, accusations of asset transfer, astronomical compensation, losing her child. Julian's revenge involved no physical blows, no verbal abuse. Instead, it was a precise, cold net woven of legal clauses, trapping her firmly in the center, tightening bit by bit, strangling her until she was bloody and suffocating in despair. She looked at her trembling hands. Last night, these hands had inexplicably pressed the switch on that electronic badge. Immense regret, like a tsunami, swallowed her whole instantly. She hugged her head, curled up on the floor, and let out a suppressed, beast-like whimper of ultimate despair. In the study of Julian's villa, heavy curtains blocked the outside light. Only an antique desk lamp emitted a concentrated amber glow, like a stage spotlight, shrouding the man sitting behind the wide desk. Harrison sat opposite him, gently pushing a document forward. "Mr. Thorne, this is the finalized divorce agreement, revised according to your requirements. Terms are clear, the evidence chain is complete, legal basis is sufficient. Ms. Vance has no substantive ability to resist." She tried to contact Zachary Miller, but he seems to be in trouble himself and is avoiding her. She is currently still at the hotel. Her funds should be running out. Julian didn't immediately look at the agreement. He leaned back in his chair. The light illuminated only half his face. The other half was hidden in heavy shadow, expression unreadable. His injured hands rested casually on the armrests. Although treated, the obvious swelling and bruising remained, like two silent metals recording those two instances of self-inflicted pain. She accepted it. Julian's voice was low, devoid of emotion. In the face of absolute evidence, she cannot deny the asset transfer. The paternity test results also leave her no room to maneuver regarding custody. The amount for emotional damages and child support, while astronomical for her current situation, has a high probability of being supported by the court. Harrison answered meticulously. Her current state. She's broken. She has no choice but to sign. An uncontested divorce is the fastest, cleanest way. If we go to litigation, she will only lose worse and pay a higher price. Julian was silent for a moment. In the study, only the ticking of the antique clock could be heard, rhythmic and cold. "And Leo?" he asked, finally a microscopic ripple in his voice. "The young master as well. As per your instructions, he has been at the estate cared for by Grandma Edith and the professional nanny team, undisturbed. He asked for his mom a few times. Grandma Edith told him, as you instructed, that Mom is on a business trip and will be gone for a long time." Harrison paused, then added, "The child is very sensible." Julian's gaze fell on a face-down picture frame on the corner of the desk. It used to be a photo of their family of 3. He reached out, using his scarred hand, to flip the frame over. In the photo, a younger Leo was sandwiched between him and Vicky, smiling without a care. Vicky's smile had been so bright then. He looked at the smiling woman in the photo, his eyes shifting with complexity. 10 years of marriage, countless days and nights. The warmth and expectations that once existed had now turned into the frozen image in the photo, cold and distant. Eventually, all ripples returned to a bottomless silence. He picked up a fountain pen and uncapped it. The metal nib glinted coldly under the light. Without any hesitation, he signed his name on the last page of the divorce agreement, on the line for Party A. Julian Thorne. 2 words, penetrating the paper, carrying a resolve to sever everything. Notify her. Julian capped the pen, his voice returning to its usual hardness. "Tomorrow morning, 9:00 a.m. City Clerk's office. Don't be late." "Yes, Mr. Thorne." Harrison collected the signed agreement and stood up. "I'll handle it immediately." After Harrison left, Julian was alone in the study again. He remained seated, looking at the photo. After a long time, he reached out, picked up the frame, opened the back, and pulled out the photo of the 3 of them. He picked up the antique brass letter opener from the desk. The sharp point precisely and slowly traced along the edge of Vicky's figure in the photo, slicing down. Rip! The sound of the sharp blade cutting photo paper was exceptionally clear and piercing in the quiet study. Vicky's figure was completely, coldly excised. He placed the remnant of the photo, now showing only him and his son smiling, back into the frame and straightened it. As for the cutout solo photo of Vicky, he picked it up with 2 fingers and moved it over the flame of the desk lamp. The orange flame greedily licked the edge of the photo paper. It curled rapidly, blackened, and emitted a pungent smell. The fire danced, reflecting in Julian's bottomless eyes. There was no pleasure there, no madness, only a patch of cold ash that had burned out. The photo turned into curled char in the flame quickly. The last spark extinguished, leaving only a pinch of ash to drift onto the polished mahogany desk. He picked up a wet wipe from the desk and carefully, slowly wiped his fingers, as if wiping away some invisible stain. Then, he turned off the desk lamp. The study plunged into total darkness. Only the faint city lights from far outside the window outlined his silhouette sitting in the chair, cold and silent as bedrock. The late autumn morning sunlight carried a crisp chill. The steps of the city clerk's building looked particularly cold and hard in the morning light. Vicky arrived by taxi. She wore the black dress from days ago, wrapped in a thin trench coat. Her face was pale and haggard, dark circles under her eyes thick and unmelting, her lips cracked. Her last bit of cash went to the fare. She stood at the bottom of the steps, looking up at the familiar glass doors, her body trembling uncontrollably. In just a few days, she had fallen from the clouds into the mud, stripped of all dignity, leaving only this wretched shell. A sleek black sedan glided silently to the curb and stopped. The door opened, and Julian stepped out. He wore a perfectly tailored dark gray bespoke suit, his posture upright, meticulous. The morning light fell on his chiseled face, revealing no expression, like a sculpture without warmth. His injured hands were tucked into his trouser pockets. He stepped steadily onto the stairs. When passing Vicky, he didn't even glance sideways at her, as if she were just a piece of irrelevant driftwood by the road. That cold disregard felt more piercingly chilling and humiliating to Vicky than any look of hatred. She bit her lower lip, almost drawing blood, her nails digging deep in her palms, barely supporting herself as she followed behind him, step by heavy step, up the stairs. There was no one at the filing window. The process was simple, efficient, and cold. The clerk was a middle-aged woman who asked routinely, "Is the dissolution of marriage voluntary?" "Yes." Julian's voice was steady and waveless. "Yes." Vicky's voice was hoarse, carrying an uncontrollable tremor. "Do you have the signed stipulation? Property division and child custody are settled." Harrison immediately stepped forward, placing two thick, signed divorce agreements, along with relevant notarizations and asset lists, neatly on the counter. "Everything is prepared. Please review." The clerk took the files, flipping through them quickly. When she saw the property division clauses, Vicky waiving all claims to joint assets, the damages for emotional distress, and the child support terms, she noticeably paused. She glanced quickly at the gaunt Vicky, then at the cold-as-ice Julian beside her. A trace of indiscernible complexity flashed in her eyes, but ultimately she said nothing, continuing to verify purely as a matter of procedure. Vicky stood there, feeling like every second was torture by 1,000 cuts. The clerk's gaze, Harrison's silence, Julian's aura of freezing exclusion, and the clauses written in black and white on that agreement, sending her into the abyss. All felt like countless needles stabbing in her body. Documents are complete. The clerk finally put down the file, took out a folder containing the finalized decree of dissolution, and began filling in information and stamping. The steel seal was raised. Thump! The heavy steel seal, carrying a cold metallic texture, pressed heavily onto the first decree. The sound wasn't loud, but it hit Vicky's chest like a sledgehammer, making her shudder. Thump! The second sound, the one belonging to her. Two dark folders were pushed out. All set. As of this moment, your marriage is dissolved. Julian reached out, his movement crisp and clean, picking up his folder. He didn't even open it to look, tucking it directly into the inner pocket of his suit, right against his heart. The fabric rose slightly, then returned to flat. He turned, without lingering for a moment, and walked straight toward the exit. From start to finish, he never looked at Vicky again. Vicky's trembling hand picked up the folder belonging to her from the counter. She watched Julian's upright, indifferent back, devoid of any nostalgia, about to disappear through the door. Massive despair and the terror of being completely abandoned finally crashed through her last shred of willpower. "Julian!" She rushed forward, her voice hoarse and broken, crying out. "I was wrong. I really know I was wrong. Last night was my fault. I was possessed. Forgive me once. Just once. For Leo's sake. Please. I can't live without Leo. I can't live without a home." She tried to grab Julian's arm, tears pouring down. Julian's footsteps didn't pause in the slightest. The moment her fingers were about to touch his expensive suit, he turned slightly sideways. With an extremely precise and cold evasive movement, her hand grabbed nothing but cold air. He stopped and finally turned around, looking down at her from above. Sunlight shone in from outside the main door, landing on half his face, leaving the other half in shadow. His eyes held a coldness and detachment Vicky had never seen before, like looking at an object that was completely strange and repulsive. "Oh," he spoke, his voice not loud, but piercing as an ice pick, clearly cutting through Vicky's sobbing. "From the moment you put that sign around your neck, it was gone." His gaze swept over the glaring divorce decree in her hand. the corner of his mouth pulled up ever so slightly. There was no mockery in that arc, only the indifference of dust settled and ties severed. Ms. Vance, he used the most distant address, every word quenched in ice. Good luck. With that, he gave her no chance to speak, turning resolutely and striding down the steps. Sunlight instantly wrapped his entire figure. His straight back looked exceptionally hard and distant in the halo, walking step by step toward the black sedan parked by the curb. No hesitation, no looking back. Vicky froze in place, her outstretched hand still hanging in midair, clutching a handful of cold air. Tears smeared her face. Julian's last good luck, and that eyes cold to the extreme look were like a branding iron, searing a permanent mark named lost everything on her heart. She watched the black sedan start silently, merge into traffic, and quickly vanish at the end of the street as if it had never been there. She lowered her head, looking at the dark folder in her hand, then looked up at the empty street and the blinding sunlight. A massive void and despair swallowed her completely. Her legs gave out, and she collapsed onto the cold steps of the clerk's office like an abandoned, broken doll, letting out a soundless wail in the late autumn wind. The car door closed, completely isolating the collapsing world outside. Inside the car was the unique silence of a top-tier luxury vehicle, only the low, steady hum of the engine audible. Julian leaned back in the seat, eyes closed. Sunlight filtered through the tinted windows, casting dappled shadows on his face. There was no expression on his face, no ecstasy of revenge, no emptiness after release. Only a deep, nearly solidified calm. He slowly opened his eyes and took out the dark divorce decree, still warm from his body heat, from his inner pocket. The cover had a fine leather texture, the gold lettering slightly blurry in the dim light. He didn't open it. He just used his thumb to slowly, repeatedly rub the cold cover. His fingertip felt the subtle friction and the outline of the hard pages inside, representing legal force. It was over. 10 years of marriage. From the initial flutter and hand-holding, to the later distance and suspicion, to the public humiliation and betrayal last night, and the precise to the point of cruelty liquidation he personally executed in these few short days. All the entanglement, love, hate, unwillingness, and anger were finalized by these two small booklets. Many images flashed through his mind. Vicky's shy smile when she was young, her exhausted but happy eyes when Leo was born, the arguments and cold wars that gradually increased later, the flickering calculation in her eyes. Finally, it froze on the electronic badge, scrolling scarlet text in the video, and the momentary panic and, perhaps a broken can-be-smashed resolve he hadn't wanted to examine deeply at the time. It didn't matter anymore. He exhaled gently, very lightly, but it felt as if he had completely expelled the heavy, bloody, foul air that had accumulated in his chest for so long. An unprecedented, almost weightless feeling rose from his limbs and bones. It wasn't joy, nor was it relief, but an absolute satisfaction of controlling the whole board. He had reclaimed his dignity, using the most legal and thorough method to wash away the shame that had been publicly trampled. He controlled the situation, putting the instigator Warren Price behind bars and bankrupting his company, causing the enabler Lana Reed to lose her reputation and ruin her future, and controlling the fate of the betrayer Vicky, making her pay the painful price of losing her marriage, assets, dignity, and even family for her actions. Every step was completed within his precise calculation and cold execution. No deviations, no accidents. This absolute sense of control, of having everything in hand and finally achieving the goal, was like a cold yet powerful warm current, a contradictory but real sensation, washing over the wounds in his soul torn by betrayal, bringing a nearly trembling, deep satisfaction. This satisfaction was far more real, more thorough, and more capable of soothing the enraged beast in his heart than any violent outburst or false forgiveness. What he wanted was never her tearful repentance, nor the sighs of bystanders. What he wanted was this cold satisfaction of personally ending it, personally burying it, and finally confirming that he possessed absolute control. The car drove smoothly toward the Thorne estate in the suburbs. There lay his young son, Leo. That was the only pure land he needed and wanted to protect in this destructive storm. He needed to confirm that the small, innocent world remained intact. The car turned into the tree-shaded estate and stopped in front of the main house. The butler was already waiting respectfully at the door. Julian pushed open the door and stepped out. The late autumn afternoon sun, carrying a clear, golden hue, poured down unreservedly, landing on him, slightly blinding. He instinctively narrowed his eyes slightly. In that moment of narrowing his eyes, the corner of his mouth, tight for days, finally, slowly, almost imperceptibly, pulled up into a sliver of an arc. It wasn't a smile. Cold, sharp, like sunlight refracted through ice, carrying an absolute satisfaction after the dust had settled and the curtain had fallen. Like a most precise instrument, after completing its set terminal program, the internal gears finally stopped turning seamlessly, returning to a cold and perfect silence. He raised his hand, gently adjusting his suit collar which the wind had ruffled, his fingertips brushing the position of the inner pocket where the dark divorce decree sat quietly against his chest. Then he took a step, his gait steady, facing that somewhat blinding sunlight, walking toward the door that opened for him, leading to his only remaining world. The sunlight stretched his upright figure long, casting it onto the smooth stone steps, like an undeniable, dividing line severing the past. Story complete.